Welcome to this British Psychological Operations history. In this episode we're going to look at the Boer War, or should I say the Second Boer War, from 1899 to 1902. Now back, just to give you an overview of what was going on at the time, South Africa was a British colony, and the British wanted to dominate the whole area. It was also occupied by the Boers. Now the Boers were essentially Dutch farmers that moved down to the area, and they didn't really want to come under British rule. So what they did, they pushed north, and they went north into and established a couple of their own territories, the Orange Free State and the Transvaal. And they set up their own stuff there. Now there's a guy called Paul Kruger. He came to London in the back end of the 1800s, and initially he negotiated with Benjamin Disraeli and his government to give him a free state of the Transvaal, to make him a president of the Transvaal, and also over the Orange Free State. Now, he wasn't overly successful, old Paul Kruger, but he did manage to become the president of the South African Republic. He also went back and negotiated with the Liberal Democrats when they took over as a Chamberlain government. Again, didn't come off particularly well for him. At the same time, the British sent down Lord Frederick Robertson, and this is him pictured at Pretoria. Now his chief of staff was none other than later become Lord Horatio Kitchener. Now Kitchener was the old guy for the First World War, doing the old pointing the finger, your country needs you. That's Lord Kitchener. He took over running the territory, policing it effectively, and he came up with his bright idea of a scorched earth policy. So he was effectively trying to burn out the rebels that were fighting against the British rule. So they went around burning farms and interning the Boers, predominantly the women and children. So they burnt out the farms, interned the women and children. Most of the men were off fighting a guerrilla war against the British. Now the British sent down an awful lot more troops, and we'll come on to a little bit of that in a bit. But this is what the camps ideally were going to look like. Nice sort of airy places, well fed, well looked after, while the British were fighting a guerrilla war campaign against the Boers. In reality, what it looked like was this. It was, they underfed them, poor sanitation, really horrible conditions, and the upshot of it was some 26,000, predominantly women and children, died in those internment camps. Or as the French would put it, concentration camps. This came out in the French press, depicting what was going on in South Africa under British rule in the internment camps. Didn't go down well, particularly well, for the British at the time. The British press, on the other hand, was showing a totally different picture all together. They were showing, or the British were effectively manipulating the press, pushing out, if for want of another word, disinformation, to make it look a lot better that the British were doing well down there. Effectively, the British had to send down some 13,000 troops, initially to relieve the siege at Ladysmith and Mafeking. So, but in the British eyes, it looked a positive down in South Africa. That's what they were trying to portray. Then you got this guy, Cecil Rohdes. Now, Cecil Rohdes, he was an imperialist. He was British born. He set up a mining company. When they found gold down in the Kimberley area, he had a big hand in it, taking on or buying up all the rights and everything for the gold that came out of that area of South Africa. This is him with members at the Kimberley garrison. Now, Cecil Rohdes, he was the guy that eventually set up Rhodesia, what was then Zambia, later became Zimbabwe. You know, that place on the east of Africa, which was the breadbasket of Africa, basically, until Robert Mugabe took over and started killing off white farmers. But that is another story. So old Cecil Rohdes had a big hand in the imperial side of it, and didn't want the likes of the Boers, upstarts and all the rest of it. So Cecil Rohdes, he set up the De Beers company, and they pretty much dominated it, and still do to this day, that gold region of South Africa. So the propaganda stuff that was coming out in the press at the time, this is one of them, showing that the small Boers, the Lilliputs, and tying down good old John Bull. Now, John Bull was an imperialist. He was the poster boy of British imperialism. So this is one of the cartoons. There was a lot of cartoons put out in the press at the time on all sides. So the Americans also wanted to keep their nose out of it, and this come out in Puck, which is an American publication. So it's Uncle Sam there. He's a policeman not wanting to go off his beat, and you can see there that people are pleading him to go and get involved in South Africa, to police it down there. This is where the Americans were starting to become the world's police, effectively. And you can see in the background there, you've got John Bull having a ruck with Paul Kruger. So quite a powerful image. And then the other image, the one on the right, that's showing a lion, the British lion, running back to Pretoria, because they didn't realise the Boers were such a fighting force. They were thought they were just peasant farmers. Turned out to be slightly different. In the end, the British won, and put it down to a victory. And then again, you've got this one. This is the French standing behind the Russian bear, again taking on John Bull. Although we actually had a couple of wars against the French over the earlier century, with the Peninsular War and at Waterloo, and now we were siding with the French, particularly coming towards the First World War. We didn't really want Russian involvement in Africa. So that's about the size of it. There's a lot more to do on South Africa, but I'm going to leave it there. Going to let you, if you're interested, go and research it yourself. It's quite difficult to find lots of images that one can use, but that just gives you a flavour of British psychological operations at the time. Although there wasn't an actual official established office for propaganda, they certainly had their fingers in it, and it was the start of a proper psychological warfare being set up. So in the next episode, we're going to look at the First World War. And the First World War, there's a lot of psychological warfare that went on all sides. So we'll cover that in the next episode. So if you like what I'm doing, please subscribe to the channel. It's free. Give me the old thumbs up, and please comment if you think I'm wrong, if you like what I'm doing. If you don't like what I'm doing, let me know in the comments. So until the next one, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. TTFN. Ta-ta for now.